and more on World Business Watch.
Hello and a very warm welcome. You are watching Gravitas with me, Mauri Gambhir. Let's get started. On our top story tonight, we're getting you the latest unfolding between Afghanistan and Pakistan after Afghanistan started the large-scale retaliatory operations in response to the multiple airstrikes launched earlier by Pakistan. A lot has unfolded in just the last 24 hours. We are telling you all about the claims being made by the two sides, where things stand, as several countries call for de-escalation. That's coming up in just a bit. Also on the show for you tonight, all about the Canadian Prime Minister's India visit and its significance. Also getting you the latest on the Iran-US tensions and what lies ahead. All this and more coming up.
You are seeing the attempted engagement.
4 years ago, when the Taliban stormed back to power in Kabul after America withdrew from the Afghanistan base and the American-backed government collapsed, Pakistan's Prime Minister at the time, Imran Khan, declared this marks the end of slavery. Islamabad was rejoicing. Pakistan was certain that the Maulvi allies it had protected and nurtured in Quetta and other parts would basically install a government, and that would be at the beck and call of Pakistan's army. Today, Pakistan has declared war, not against India, but against Afghanistan. And Afghanistan is teaching Pakistan a sharp lesson. The Taliban have punched back hard. Afghanistan has hit military targets, caused casualties, taken Pakistan prisoners of war. A lot has unfolded. The Pakistan Air Force bombed Kabul and Kandahar. The Pakistan Defense Minister has called Afghanistan a proxy of India. War is raging across both sides. Taliban has claimed 55 Pakistani soldiers have been killed. Islamabad has announced the death of 274 Afghan fighters. And on Thursday night, Kabul attacked across a wide front against the Pakistan military targets along the present border, which Afghanistan, remember, has not formally recognized. Pakistan, in fact, started the war on the 21st of February, in which 18 civilians, Afghan civilians in Nangarhar and Paktika provinces lost their lives. Pakistan claims it had targeted 7 camps belonging to the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, the TTP. Afghanistan's response was punishing. According to Kabul, 55 Pakistani soldiers were killed, 2 headquarters, 19 checkposts were destroyed, multiple arms were captured. Pakistan's Information Ministry has confirmed Afghan attacks firing at multiple locations, including Khyber Khurram and other parts in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province as well. Escalating the conflict further, in fact, Pakistan's defense minister declared an open war on Afghanistan without providing a shred of evidence. He accused Taliban of being a proxy of India and stressed that Pakistan had lost its patience. Past midnight, residents of Kabul, Kandahar, other parts were jolted awake by sounds of bombs and gunfire as Pakistan launched its operation, as part of which it claimed to have killed 274 Afghan Taliban fighters and injured more than 400 others. Now, in terms of the damage to Afghanistan's military infrastructure specifically, Pakistan military spokesman has alleged that 73 Taliban posts, 115 tanks, artillery guns and armored personnel vehicles had been destroyed. Additionally, he announced that the core headquarters of the Taliban forces, ammunition depots, logistic bases were targeted. He also confirmed the death of 12 Pakistani soldiers, while adding that another 27 were injured and one soldier remains missing. And after a few hours, the extent of the damage across Afghanistan became clear, with the injured being rushed to hospitals, the damage to the infrastructure. Locals recounted their experience on the ground and expressed their anger over the situation.
It was 2 a.m. We were with our friends. They said it might be an explosion or an earthquake. We did not go downstairs in the house. There was a faint sound of gunfire. We waited for a while. Then we got up and went outside.
We were all asleep when the plane came very low. As soon as I heard the sound of the aircraft, I got up from my place. I saw the plane descend and drop 2 bombs. Then it went back up again. It was around 2 a.m. All of us, including the women, ran downstairs.
The situation was particularly worse in the border region, as Afghans put up in a refugee camp in Torkham were forced to flee after being reportedly targeted by the Pakistani military. Listen to this.
Here nearby, a bullet explosives hit. I saw blood. It wounded 2 or 3 children and 2 or 3 women. I don't know about the rest, if the Taliban have taken them or not to the hospital, but the situation last night was bad. We left everything behind.
And the conflict took another dramatic turn as Afghanistan's defense ministry claimed to have conducted airstrikes inside Pakistan at 11 a.m. today. The targets reportedly included key military bases, command centers, strategic facilities across Islamabad, Nowshera, Jamrud, Abbottabad. However, Pakistan disputed this. It instead claimed to have foiled the TTP's attempt to launch small drones in Abbottabad and Nowshera areas of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. Meanwhile, several countries around the world have voiced their concern over the escalation in hostilities between the two sides and called for de-escalation. This includes China, Russia, Qatar, Saudi Arabia. Even Iran, which is currently facing the possible risk of strikes by the US, offered to help facilitate dialogue between Afghanistan and Pakistan.
As a neighbor and friend, China is deeply concerned about the escalation of the conflict and deeply saddened by the casualties caused. The intensity of this round of conflict between Pakistan and Afghanistan exceeds that of previous ones, and its continuation or escalation will bring harm and losses to both sides.
Meanwhile, Pakistan's Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister spoke with his Saudi Arabian and Turkish counterparts, justifying the military operation as a measure to safeguard Pakistan's sovereignty. But the situation has not calmed down as of now, far from it. Addressing a briefing, the Taliban spokesman, in fact, made a startling revelation while emphasizing that Afghanistan wanted to resolve the situation through dialogue. He also claimed that Pakistani surveillance aircraft are still flying over his country. And in wake of Pakistan's aggression, the Afghan security forces are on high alert, especially personnel operating anti-aircraft guns are keeping a close watch for Pakistani jets near the border. Although Pakistan has a numerical advantage in terms of the numbers of military personnel and combat aircraft, the strength of the Taliban cannot be underestimated, looking at what they have achieved in the recent past. While both sides agreed to a ceasefire in October last year, it is clear that peace remains elusive in the region as of now. Moving on for now, Canada's Prime Minister has arrived in India for a 4-day visit that could mark a turning point in the relations between the two sides. He landed in Mumbai just a while ago and will be in the country until the 2nd of March. And during this visit, he is scheduled to meet the Indian Prime Minister at Hyderabad House, where talks are expected to focus on trade, strategic cooperation, technology, energy, resetting bilateral ties. For the Canadian leader, this visit is not just diplomatic formality. It's a roadmap mission. In fact, Ottawa is seeking to expand trade, reduce dependence on Washington, remember, and position Canada as a serious economic partner in India's growth story as well. Canada, for that matter, has set a target of doubling bilateral trade with India to $70 billion annually by 2030. Currently, two-way trade standing at $13.3 billion, with the Canadian exports at $5.3 billion, imports from India standing at $8 billion. That's what the numbers look like. But this visit also coming against the backdrop of a sharp dip in relations during the Trudeau era. The ties, remember, hit a whole new low after Canada made those allegations regarding the 2023 killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar. Ottawa claimed it was investigating the alleged links to Indian agents. These claims were strongly rejected by New Delhi, and the row led to diplomatic expulsions, a freeze in trade talks, a full-blown standoff, basically. And with Carney's election victory in April 2025, Ottawa has shifted towards a more pragmatic approach. High commissioners have returned to their posts, security dialogues have resumed, including meetings involving India's National Security Advisor. Both sides are now working on an action plan to address transnational crime and extremism, leaving behind the bad past. And the Sikh factor remains a sensitive dimension in this relationship. Canada, remember, is home to the largest Sikh population outside Punjab and has over 1.8 million people of Indian origin. India has consistently raised concern about Khalistani extremist elements operating from Canadian soil. And while Canada has balanced domestic politics with international diplomacy, this visit also will be testing how the two sides manage this delicate issue while moving forward at the same time. India's global economic profile is rising rapidly simultaneously. Countries around the world, in fact, lining up to secure trade deals with the world's fourth largest economy. The India-EU trade agreement, described by the European Commission president as the mother of all deals, is set to create one of the world's largest free trade zones, connecting nearly 2 billion consumers and markets worth $24 trillion. And in this global rush to engage India, Canada cannot afford to be left behind. Prime Minister Modi's vision of Viksit Bharat, a developed India by 2047, offering massive opportunities in infrastructure, clean energy, technology, investment. The big question is whether this visit will successfully move India-Canada relations from reconciliation to real partnership. And as Carney and Prime Minister Modi will be sitting down for talks, the world will be watching whether trade, trust, strategic cooperation can fully reset a relationship that once stood at the brink. Imagine a part of the world where you have never lost in over 80 years, an election which the Labour headed into as a hot favourite, ending in a huge embarrassment for the UK Prime Minister, to say the least. Before being merged into a single constituency, this area has been returning a Labour MP for close to 100 years, whereas Denton has been a bastion of the Starmer-led party since World War II. This time, the Green Party caused a major upset, with Hannah Spencer emerging victorious in the seat by a margin of 4,402. In fact, the 34-year-old newly elected MP has been under the spotlight for her humble origins as a plumber. At her victory celebrations, the Green Party leader dubbed it a seismic win. This is also the first time in history that the Greens have won a parliamentary by-poll.
This electoral scramble is over. This is a seismic victory. We have torn the roots of British politics. And that's because people now recognise there is an alternative.
Now, if we just closely look at the results and the way the numbers stack up, a broader trend is also visible. The Labour, which won with over 50% of the popular vote in the 2024 election, has crashed to the number 3 spot, as you can see, with a vote share of 25.4%. The Tories, meanwhile, have also performed badly, getting less than 2% votes. On the other hand, the Green Party's vote share increased by 14%, propelling it over the finishing line. And how? Similarly, Reform UK's Matt Goodwin emerged as the runner-up, as the party doubled its vote share. The election also saw a fair bit of controversy, of course, with the Reform UK chief dubbing the result as a victory for sectarian voting and cheating. Meanwhile, Starmer put on a brave face despite facing criticism from fellow MPs. He stressed that he will be fighting against extreme groups in politics, which he claimed wanted to tear the country apart. So that fight will go on, he says.
It's a very disappointing result. Incumbent governments quite often get results like that mid-term, but I do understand that voters are frustrated. They're impatient for change.
The by-poll defeat coming at a juncture when Starmer has been facing calls to resign. Early this month as well, his chief of staff stepped down, taking full responsibility for advising the Prime Minister to appoint Peter Mandelson as the ambassador to the US. And this came after emails released by the US Department of Justice put the spotlight on the deep association between Mandelson and the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Opinion polls are also predicting a poor show for the UK's ruling party, as per a survey conducted by online research firm YouGov from the 22nd of February to the 23rd. Labour and the Conservative Party have the same amount of public support. Nigel Farage-led Reform UK party continues to be the most popular political outfit, with 24% respondents likely to vote for the party. And among other parties, 17% of respondents backed the Green Party. Will the local body elections scheduled later in May this year? It's apparent that Starmer is facing one of the toughest tests yet of his political career. West Asia bracing for a war. Stock markets have been feeling the heat, and in India, the Sensex crashed 950 points. Investors lost 5 lakh crore rupees, as per reports. The US and the UK, meanwhile, are asking their diplomats to leave. China has urged its citizens to evacuate. But Iran says it is not backing down. And Donald Trump says all options remain on the table. Warships, fighter jets, missile batteries are already in position. But Tehran also insists the only real option for Washington is a deal.
The military deployment is visible from space. Carrier decks packed with aircraft. Fighter jets landing at forward bases. Missile defense systems activated. The American military power in the region is overwhelming. The US Embassy in Israel has authorized non-essential personnel to leave the country amid the possibility of a strike on Iran. Iranian officials reportedly believe they have called President Donald Trump's bluff. Tehran's calculation is blunt. The United States does not want another prolonged conflict, and pressure tactics are designed to force concessions, not trigger a full-scale war. Washington's posture tells a different story. The Pentagon has surged forces across the region, strike aircraft, naval assets, and air defense units. Form a layered shield and sword, the message of deterrence through dominance. But even inside the US leadership, the tone is calibrated. US Vice President J.D. Vance says there is no chance that any potential strike on Iran would drag America into a long war in the region. The assurance is aimed at a war-weary domestic audience. Military experts have examined whether a US attack would succeed and what could go wrong. Iran's nuclear facilities are dispersed and hardened. US and Israeli military has locked their target. The firepower is immense, but the worry is what comes next. Iranian retaliation could come through ballistic missiles, drones, cyber attacks, and its allied forces across multiple fronts. Shipping lanes could be targeted, regional allies could be hit. The tentativeness comes after a round of Oman-mediated talks between Iran and the US, seen as a last-ditch bid to avert war, though initial optimism was tempered by Tehran, warning Washington must drop excessive demands to reach a deal. Iran believes time is on its side. Trump believes pressure will force compliance. For now, missiles stay in their launchers, and both sides watch for the blink. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
What is US President Donald Trump hiding? That question comes up because serious questions are also doing the rounds around the release of the Epstein files, rather the documents that have been withheld, which is also putting the spotlight firmly on the US president. And also, there have been growing calls for him to testify. The US Justice Department, in fact, has allegedly withheld certain documents linked to unsubstantiated claims that Trump sexually abused a minor, allegedly. A woman who accused Trump, claiming that in 1983, when she was about 13 years old, convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein introduced her to him, allegedly. This is what's been reported. The US Justice Department has also reportedly removed certain documents from a public database where accusations against Epstein referenced Trump, allegedly. Despite a law mandating transparency and release, some records remain under wraps. These reportedly include more than 50 pages of FBI interview summaries, along with detailed notes from conversations with the woman, reportedly, who accused Trump decades ago. Congressman Robert Garcia, a member of the House Oversight Committee, says he personally reviewed documents containing the allegation that have not been made public. That claim intensifies the political and legal pressure surrounding the case. The US Justice Department claims that nothing has been deleted, adding that they withheld documents only if they were duplicates, legally privileged, or part of an ongoing federal investigation. And as the scrutiny over Epstein's network widens, former US Secretary of State Hillary Clinton has denied any personal connection with Epstein or knowledge of his crimes. The former US presidential candidate also urged lawmakers to question Donald Trump under oath about his association with Epstein. Listen to this.
What I said in my statement this morning. I never met Jeffrey Epstein, never had any connection or communication with him. I knew Ghislaine Maxwell casually as an acquaintance.
Clinton also accused Republican lawmakers of conducting what she called a fishing expedition rather than a serious inquiry. She also said that her testimony should have been made public. In the interest of transparency, she defended her husband, former US President Bill Clinton, as well, saying she is confident that he had no knowledge of Epstein's crimes during their interactions.
And I think the chronology of the connection that he had with Epstein ended several years before anything about Epstein's criminal activities came to light. I think that that is exactly what my husband will testify to tomorrow.
Bill Clinton, scheduled to testify before the lawmakers. He will be the first sitting or former president to testify before members of the Congress in more than 40 years. Lawmakers saying Epstein visited the White House 17 times during Bill Clinton's presidency. 17, reportedly. Reports also suggesting Clinton flew on Epstein's plane several times, allegedly, after leaving office. Bill Clinton has denied wrongdoing and expressed regret over the association. So the unanswered question remains, what exactly is still hidden in those files? How much time do you spend on social media platforms? What kind of impact does social media consumption have on you? Time and again, there have been questions, a lot of concern around the use of social media by the younger population and the kind of impact it has. Let's tell you about a 20-year-old woman who has taken the stand in a landmark US trial accusing Meta platforms and Google of addicting her to social media as a child and damaging her mental health, allegedly. Testifying in the court, she told jurors that years of using YouTube and Instagram left her anxious, depressed, and insecure about her appearance. She said she started watching YouTube as a 6-year-old and joined Instagram at the age of 9. She also told the court her use quickly became obsessive, affecting her school performance, disrupting her sleep, limiting her offline social life, allegedly, and straining relationships with her family. She said her mental health worsened so severely that she developed suicidal thoughts. And at the age of 10, started self-harming as a way to cope with depression. Even today, she said, she feels unable to give up social media. Under questioning, she said being without her phone made her feel like a huge part of her was missing and that she was overwhelmed by a fear of missing out. Her lawsuit claims Meta and Google profited by designing their platforms to hook children, reportedly, despite knowing that excessive use could harm young people's mental and behavioral health, allegedly. The case was filed by her mother 2 years ago, before she turned 18. The jury has also heard from her former psychotherapist, who said excessive social media use was a contributing factor to her mental health problems. The trial is examining what the companies knew about the effects of social media on children and how their products and business strategies targeted younger users. Meta and Google have both denied the allegations. The outcome of this trial could set an important precedent on whether big tech can be held responsible for the design of its platforms and to what extent. Remember earlier regarding social media use among teenagers and the kind of content that's being consumed, we also told you how court documents in the US reportedly revealed that nearly 1 in 5 Instagram users aged 13 to 15 reported seeing unwanted nudity or sexual content on the platform. The case is part of thousands of lawsuits in the US accusing Meta of designing addictive features that contribute to a mental health crisis among minors. Separate internal documents reportedly showing a company researcher urged Meta allegedly to focus on teen users, describing them as catalysts who influence their parents and younger siblings to join the platform, allegedly. Meta has reportedly said that the figures come from user feedback, not a review of actual posts, and adds that much of the explicit content is shared through private messages, where privacy limits monitoring. The company also points to new safety measures for teen accounts, including removing nudity and sexually explicit material, even when generated by AI with limited exceptions for educational or medical use. On that note, we're taking a very short break, but here's what's coming up on the other side for you. US rare earths shortages are deepening. The implications are immense and wide-reaching. We decode that in just a bit. What is the oldest love story? You don't want to miss this, getting you a special report. All this and lots more coming up.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Welcome back. Thanks very much for staying on with us. You are watching Gravitas. Rare earth shortages are worsening for the US aerospace and semiconductor suppliers despite a recent trade truce between Washington and Beijing. Industry sources are saying supplies of several remain tight, with some companies even rationing materials and pausing production. This is a high temperature coating, this material that's used in high temperature coating that project jet engines, turbines. Without these coatings, engines cannot operate safely. Since export controls were introduced by China in April, the US access to this material has dropped sharply. Prices have surged about 60% since November and are roughly 69 times higher than a year ago. Two North American coating suppliers have temporarily halted production due to shortages. One company has stopped serving smaller and overseas customers to conserve supply for major engine makers. Another firm in the supply chain reportedly has stopped selling products containing it after running out of the material. Engine production has not yet been directly affected, but concerns are rising as plane makers increase output and airlines seek spare parts. Semiconductor manufacturers are also facing low supplies of scandium. The metal is used in advanced chip production and is critical for components in 5G smartphones and base stations. Global scandium output is only a few dozen tons per year. The US has no domestic production and no active alternative sources outside China. Industry sources say US chip makers have faced delays in securing Chinese export licenses for scandium and have contacted Washington for assistance. Stockpiles are believed to be limited and may last only months. And this issue is expected to feature in the upcoming talks between US President Donald Trump and the Chinese president. Moving on for now to other updates. India's president undertook a sortie in the indigenous light combat helicopter Prachand near the India-Pakistan border in Rajasthan's Jaisalmer district. Wearing an olive green flying suit and helmet, the president was seen waving from the cockpit before departure. The mission was conducted as a two-aircraft LCH formation. The president flew in the lead aircraft, while the Indian Air Force chief and a group captain flew as number 2 in the second aircraft. The LCH Prachand is India's first indigenously designed and developed combat helicopter. The helicopter is designed for operations across a wide range of terrains, including deserts and high-altitude regions. And this is not the first time that the Indian president has taken a military sortie. In October last year, remember, she flew in a Rafale fighter jet at the Air Force Station in Ambala. In April 2023, she had also undertaken a sortie in a Sukhoi 30 MKI fighter jet in the state of Assam. President Murmu also witnessed the exercise Vayu Shakti 2026, a demonstration of the Indian Air Force's capability to deliver weapons with long-range precision capability as well as conventional weapons. The drills took place at the Pokhran Field firing range near the India-Pakistan border. The Defence Minister was also present. At a time when the United States is witnessing one of its most aggressive immigration crackdowns in modern history, with more than 2.5 million deportations carried out across the country last year and refugee doors slammed shut to those fleeing war, famine, or political persecution, US President Donald Trump is making an exception, not for refugees from Gaza, not for families escaping wars and conflicts in countries like Sudan, but specifically for white South Africans, reportedly. New documents from the US Department of State reportedly reveal plans to process as many as 4,500 refugee applications per month from white South Africans alone. The Trump administration has even started installing trailers on US Embassy grounds in Pretoria to help facilitate admissions. The 4,500 monthly target raises many questions because Trump has publicly set the total global refugee ceiling for 2026 at just 7,500, meaning the single group could, in theory, consume nearly the entire annual gap in a matter of months. So why this exception is the immediate question, and what does this policy actually signal about America's immigration priorities in 2026? Let's just break this down for you. Most white South Africans reportedly are members of the Afrikaner community, descendants of mainly Dutch, French, German settlers, or English-speaking white South Africans who descend from British settlers. Both communities once ruled South Africa under apartheid. When Trump returned to office, he immediately halted refugee admissions as part of his broader immigration crackdown. Weeks later, he created a special pathway for white South Africans, claiming they face systemic violence in the majority black nation. South Africa's government flatly rejecting that accusation, saying there is no evidence of organized persecution against white South Africans, and calls the genocide narrative as fundamentally unsubstantiated. According to a Reuters report, around 2,000 South Africans had entered the United States under the program by the end of January. But admissions accelerated sharply in recent months, with roughly 1,500 arrivals in December and January alone, compared to just 500 in the previous 6.5 months. Huge jump there. Even so, bureaucratic hurdles remain because of the sweeping refugee ban issued in early 2025. Each South African requires approval on a case-by-case basis from the US Department of State and the Homeland Security Secretary. While internal delays have reportedly created a growing backlog, the US State Department even paused refugee travel for several weeks due to operational constraints. Trump, in the past, backed by South African-born entrepreneur Elon Musk, has repeatedly claimed that white citizens face systemic discrimination in post-apartheid South Africa. Claims of a targeted genocide against white South Africans, though, have been widely discredited. On to Indonesia now, which has sentenced the son of a reclusive oil merchant to 15 years in prison in connection with a massive $17 billion corruption case involving the country's state-owned energy firm. In fact, he was ordered by the Central Jakarta District Court to pay a $173 million fine and compensate the state for the losses or face seizure of his assets. Let's tell you more. The sentencing also marks the most high-profile conviction in a widespread graft investigation targeting Indonesia's state-owned energy firm. 6 former executives have already been sentenced to custodial terms, reportedly, as part of the investigation. The eldest son of Mohammad Riza faced the court head-on, refusing to flee and now heading to jail after being found guilty of using his family's influence to secure illegal fuel leases. The conviction makes him the latest figure held accountable in one of the country's largest financial crimes. Who exactly is the man who is widely regarded as the leader of Indonesia's oil mafia, the gasoline godfather, as he's called as well? Well, he controlled major oil imports and procurement, a prime suspect in the $17.5 billion graft case. Authorities have issued an Interpol red notice for his arrest on the 23rd of January this year, after he fled Indonesia, and investigators believe he is hiding in an ASEAN country. And what exactly is the graft, $17.5 billion graft, all about? He and his associates are accused of controlling the firm's oil imports. He allegedly forced the state to buy oil at inflated prices from their own companies. He also reportedly forced the state-owned firm into unnecessary, overpriced lease contracts for fuel storage terminals. He sold low-grade fuel mixed with additives, pocketing the difference, allegedly. The total cost to the Indonesian government is estimated at $17.5 billion, making it one of the largest financial crimes in the country's history. The investigation started early last year, leading to the detention of more than a dozen executives, its subsidiaries, and associated trading firms. Authorities questioned over 250 witnesses, including in Singapore, and even detained an employee of the global trading firm, Trafigura. The conviction stemming from the shareholding, which was leased by Pertamina unnecessarily. The Attorney General's office also identified him as the ultimate beneficial owner of the company. Long before written history, there was a meeting of worlds, not kingdoms, not empires, but two different kinds of humans. New DNA evidence suggesting the earliest cross-species love story may be far older than we imagined. Take a look.
The ice was thick, the predators were lethal, and the survival of the species hung by a thread in a frozen wasteland. For an eternity, we believed that Homo sapiens, our direct ancestors, and the Neanderthals were bitter rivals locked in a battle of supremacy. Till now, we believed that one group rose and the other simply vanished into the dust of time. But now, a groundbreaking genetic discovery has just shattered that cold, clinical narrative. It turns out the dawn of man wasn't just about the hunt. It was about a connection that crossed the ultimate biological frontier. The latest findings published in Nature Journal reveal a prehistoric Romeo and Juliet story written in our very blood. Scientists have sequenced ancient genomes to discover that Neanderthal men and Homo sapiens women weren't just sharing territory, they were starting families. This wasn't a fleeting moment in a cave, it was a profound genetic merger. While Neanderthals were shorter, stronger, and built for the deep cold, and Homo sapiens were the lean, imaginative newcomers from the south, the two groups recognized a shared humanity. The data suggests sustained, meaningful interaction that left a permanent mark on the human genome. Every time you fight off a virus or adapt to a new climate, you might be using a biological gift passed down from a Neanderthal father to a modern human mother.
Google has reportedly thwarted a massive cyber spy operation linked to China, targeting telecom and government organizations across at least 42 countries. The tech giant reportedly revealed that the group, tracked and also known as Gallium, had been active for over a decade, spying on at least 53 victims and using a custom backdoor to infiltrate systems. The malware could execute commands remotely, upload and download files, and exfiltrate sensitive data, including names, phone numbers, dates, places of birth, even voter IDs, and national ID numbers. What exactly is this group all about? It's a Chinese-backed cyber spy group that has remained hidden in networks for years. It targets phone companies and other organizations to snoop on communications. Security experts also refer to it as Alloy Taurus or Granite Typhoon. The group has struck nations around the world, including Afghanistan, Australia, Belgium, Cambodia, Malaysia, Russia, Vietnam, the Philippines. Regionally, their operations have hit South Asia, Africa, Europe, and West Asia, making this one of the most sensitive spy operations exposed in recent times. In terms of the targeted sectors, it has focused on telecommunications, government entities, financial institutions, making its spying efforts vast and highly sensitive. Google and partners responded swiftly, reportedly cutting off the group's access to Google Cloud. Google reportedly disabled their internet infrastructure, blocked accounts used to secretly send and receive information via Google Sheets. The company clarified that no Google products were compromised in the process. The Chinese embassy defended its position, stating that cybersecurity is a global challenge and should be handled through dialogue and cooperation. They emphasized that China firmly opposes illegal hacking, while rejecting any attempts to smear or slander the country. Google confirmed that it is distinct from other Chinese-linked hacking groups, such as Salt Typhoon, and uses unique tactics, techniques, and procedures to target victims worldwide. The campaign, which Google has been tracking since 2017, showing a decade-long effort to gather intelligence, staying hidden in network traffic, and exploiting web servers and edge systems to maintain access. Victims have been notified, and Google's report provides technical details on the backdoor, as well as other methods. It also includes the use of VPNs to mask their activity. And this landmark bust highlights the scale and sophistication of state-sponsored cyber espionage in today's digital age. There is a new tourism trend in Russia, especially in its capital and its nearby region. Amid the freezing temperatures, where teams of huskies race across frozen fields there, pulling sleds packed with tourists from Oman and the UAE, for many of them, this is their first taste of a Russian winter. Others feed deer in countryside parks or speed across icy lakes in hovercrafts overhead, hot air balloons rising above the endless white landscapes. 5 years into the war with Ukraine, Russia is turning decisively away from the West and deepening ties with the Gulf, and that pivot is also reshaping tourism.
It was very good and very nice country here in Russia. We like here the weather, and the people here are so respectful. They respect all religion, all peoples, all nationality, and it's a very nice country.
Direct flights now connect Moscow with major Gulf cities. Visa rules have eased, diplomatic engagement has intensified, and the result is a sharp rise in Arab tourists.
There are many direct flights to Moscow from Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Dubai. And of course, this helped to increase the touristic flow from these countries. Moreover, Russia, is not very far from Arab states.
Official figures showing more than 800,000 Chinese tourists visited Russia last year, keeping China in the top spot. But Saudi Arabia climbed to the second place for the first time, sending nearly 75,000 visitors, a jump of almost 36%. The UAE followed with more than 59,000 tourists, ranking 6th overall. Gulf visitors are now a familiar presence in central Moscow's luxury hotels, high-end shopping districts, and upscale restaurants. Russian tour operators saying they typically spend at least $6,500 on premium services and would spend more if financial restrictions were looser.
Amazing, interesting experience. We really liked it. We enjoyed it. Yeah, it's the most beautiful country that I have ever visited.
Western sanctions mean Visa and MasterCard cards could not function in Russia, and visitors cannot bring in more than $10,000 in cash without declaration. As per the Russian government, 4.8 million foreign tourists visited the country in 2025, a 15% rise from the previous year, while 2.45 million Russians traveled to the UAE alone, reflecting growing two-way ties. Is there a correlation between the kind of food you consume and the risk of getting cancer? A large-scale study has now indicated significant benefits for those who follow a vegetarian diet. The study, published by the University of Oxford researchers in the British Journal of Cancer, examined over 1.8 million people. They basically compared the risk of 17 different cancers across 5 diet groups: meat eaters, poultry eaters, people who eat fish but not meat, vegetarians, and vegans. The study threw up the results that have been talked about. The researchers found that vegetarians have a substantially lower risk of 5 types of cancer as compared to meat eaters. For instance, those eating vegetarian food have a 28% lower risk of contracting kidney cancer. Similarly, vegetarians have a 21% lower risk of developing pancreatic cancer. 21% lower risk. And this category of people also showed less incidence of multiple myeloma, prostate, and breast cancer. However, not all is favorable for vegetarians. The study discovered that people following a vegetarian diet have double the risk of contracting esophagus cancer as compared to non-vegetarians. And as far as vegans are concerned, the study did not find any evidence to suggest that they differed from meat eaters in case of most cancers. But the researchers cautioned that vegans have a significantly higher risk of bowel cancer. There are a few advantages for poultry eaters as well, who were found to have a lower risk of prostate cancer. On that note, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas Tonight. This is me, Molly Gambhir, signing off. Thanks very much for watching. This week on the West Asia Post, jet killers from Russia, carrier killers from China. Iran is arming up with deadly missiles as Trump ramps up pressure.